It was one of those family dinners where everyone dresses up, pretends everything is fine, and smiles through clenched teeth. We were at my parents' house. The long oak table stretched across the dining room like it had since we were kids, candles flickering against the dim yellow light. My sister, as always, had taken the seat closest to Dad, right under the chandelier, almost like she was center stage. She always wanted the spotlight. It didn't matter whether it was her birthday or someone else's promotion, she found a way to make it about herself. I had arrived quietly, greeted everyone, helped Mom in the kitchen, and took my seat at the far end of the table, away from all the noise and the never-ending comparisons. As soon as I sat down, I could feel S-marks, whispers. My sister glanced at me with that familiar smug smile, the one that always meant trouble. And just like that, without warning, in the middle of the salad being passed around, she leaned forward and said loudly, "So? Still working at that tiny office? Job, huh? Must be fun watching everyone else succeed." Laughter followed from a few cousins, and someone even coughed just to hide a chuckle. I looked up slowly, locking eyes with her. My heart pounded, not from embarrassment, but from anger. This wasn't the first time. Ever since we were teenagers, she found joy in picking me apart in front of others, like it proved something. I looked around the table, my mother pretending not to hear, my uncle suddenly too focused on his plate, my dad tightening his jaw. No one ever stood up for me. Not once, and for years I let it slide. But something inside me that night refused to stay quiet. I didn't reply at first. I let the silence stretch just long enough to make her uncomfortable, just long enough for the smirks to fade and the clinking of silverware to return. I could feel her waiting for me to retaliate or laugh it off like usual, but I didn't. I took a sip of water and continued eating, which somehow irritated her more than if I'd snapped back. But the mood had shifted. People were no longer laughing. They were watching. She couldn't stand being ignored, especially when she'd tried to be clever. So she tried again. "I mean, you've been doing the same thing for years. Don't you ever get bored of being average?" This time it wasn't just a jab, it was a challenge. She wanted to prove something in front of the whole family. That she had climbed higher, that she had a better car, a fancier life, and that I was still stuck in the same place. I slowly put my fork down and looked her straight in the eye. For the first time in my life, I saw it in not just arrogance but deep insecurity hiding behind her words. Her eyes flickered for a second. Just a second. "You really want to do this here?" I asked calmly, not in anger, but in clarity. In front of everyone, my voice was low but strong. She raised her eyebrows, playing innocent. "Do what? I'm just asking." Her tone was sickly sweet, but I wasn't fooled. Neither were a few others. My cousin Lena had stopped chewing. My father had lowered his glass. She smirked again. "I just don't get it. You never left town, never traveled, never even switched careers. Don't you wonder what it's like to actually be someone?" It was like time slowed in that moment. The clinking stopped. The air thickened. I stared at her, truly stared. Not as my sister, but as a woman desperate for validation from others. And then I asked the question. Just one. The question that had been simmering in my mind for years. I leaned forward slightly and asked, "And what exactly makes you believe you're more successful than me?" That's all. No yelling, no sarcasm, just a simple, quiet question that hit like a thunderclap. She blinked. "Excuse me?" she said, her voice thinner now. I said again, "What exactly makes you believe you're better? Is it your job title? Your bank account? Your Instagram followers? Or is it just that you need to believe someone else is smaller so you can feel big?" The room was dead silent. No one moved. Her fork rested halfway to her mouth, her lips parted, like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done shrinking myself to keep the peace. I looked around and continued, because for years, I've watched you turn every family gathering into your own personal TED Talk about your amazing life. But no one ever asks what it's really like. No one asks what's behind that perfect smile. And you know why? Because they're afraid you'll turn on them next. She opened her mouth to protest, but I didn't stop. "You mock me because I didn't chase titles, but you don't even see the life I've built. You don't know the people I've helped. You don't know the sacrifices I've made. The nights I sat by Mom's side when she was sick, the times I paid bills for family members who never even said thank you. But you remember none of that. All you see is a paycheck." By now, the entire table had gone cold. No one spoke. Even the kids who normally ran around screaming had stopped. My aunt slowly lowered her wine glass, her face unreadable. My father cleared his throat like he wanted to say something, but even he knew this was overdue. My sister still hadn't said a word. She just sat there, her confidence crumbling by the second, eyes darting from face to face, hoping someone would jump in, someone would rescue her. but no one did. I continued, calmer now, my voice low but steady. You measure success by applause, but I measure mine by impact. You've had vacations and promotions and fancy clothes, but when's the last time someone truly confided in you? When's the last time you were someone's safe place? When did you last make someone feel seen without needing to brag about it online afterward? Her hands tightened around her napkin. I could tell she wanted to scream, to insult, to fight back with another clever line, but nothing came, because deep down, she knew. She knew that I had said the one thing she feared the most, that all her noise was a mask. A mask for her loneliness, her doubt, her constant need for approval, and for the first time she couldn't hide behind it. You spent your life trying to be impressive, I said, softer now, but you forgot how to be kind. Tears welled in her eyes, not the dramatic kind, the real kind, the kind she'd spent years suppressing, the kind that come when you're finally forced to see yourself through someone else's eyes. I leaned back, not to gloat, but because I had nothing more to say. I had said it all. I had broken years of silence in one dinner with one question, and the silence that followed was heavier than anything I'd ever felt. My mother looked stunned, like she had seen a ghost. My father looked like he was trying to reconcile the image of the daughter he always overlooked with the voice she had finally found. My cousin reached across the table and touched my hand, and my sister, my bold, flawless, endlessly critical sister, sat quietly, tears slipping down her cheek, unable to wipe them away fast enough. She wasn't angry, she wasn't yelling, she was just still. For the first time in her life, still, and in that stillness, something shifted. She looked at me, truly looked at me, not with contempt or condescension, but with recognition. The recognition of someone who realized she had never really seen me at all. The silence didn't end quickly. It lingered like a fog that no one dared break. Even the clatter of utensils, the scraping of chairs, everything had paused. The only sound in that moment was the gentle hum of the chandelier above us. I watched her swallow hard and look down, her face no longer composed, no longer perfect. She tried to reach for her water, but her hand trembled slightly. I could see the war inside her. She wasn't used to being vulnerable, not in front of people, not even to herself. She had built her identity on being untouchable, the high achiever, the one who always had a comeback. But tonight, her armor cracked, and through it, something far more real emerged. I didn't press her. I didn't need to. I had no desire to hurt her. I just wanted her to stop hurting others, to make herself feel better. Around the table, some eyes were on her, some were on me. I could feel the confusion, the discomfort, the quiet acknowledgments. Everyone was rethinking the story they had always believed, that she was the winner, that I was the disappointment. But no one had seen the truth between those lines, that I had carried more than anyone knew, that I had endured quietly while she flourished loudly. And in that endurance, I had found something she hadn't. Peace. I looked at my plate, untouched, and realized I wasn't hungry. Not for food. I was hungry for space to finally exist. As myself, without shame, without comparison, without feeling like the shadow of someone else's spotlight. And that hunger had finally been met. Not with applause, but with truth. She finally spoke, but her voice was a whisper. I didn't mean to, she began, but the sentence didn't finish. She didn't need to finish it. Everyone knew. The apology hovered, unfinished, but felt. I gave a small nod. I didn't smile. I didn't offer comfort. I let her sit in that discomfort, not out of cruelty, but because she needed to feel it. Sometimes the most powerful growth comes from silence, not the kind that's forced on you, but the kind that you choose to listen to, the kind that reveals what you've been running from. And in her silence, I saw something shift. Not instantly, not completely, but enough to make the room feel different. She wiped her eyes quickly, not because she was embarrassed to cry, but because for once she didn't want to make it a show. She turned to our mother, trying to change the subject, but even her voice had softened. Mom, do you need help in the kitchen? She asked. A small gesture, a crack in the wall. Mom, still stunned, nodded. My sister stood up and walked slowly to the kitchen, head slightly bowed. No one followed her. No one said a word, and for the first time I felt no need to follow either. I had spent years chasing her approval, her recognition, even her warmth, but tonight, I wasn't chasing anything. I had finally stood still, and in that stillness I had found my voice. The dinner eventually resumed, though not quite in the same way. The air was different. The tension had broken, but it had left behind something raw. My uncle asked a question about work, not to her, but to me. For the first time, people listened to what I did not, in polite curiosity, but in real interest. They asked how long I'd been mentoring young professionals, how I found meaning in what I did, how I stayed so calm even in such a sharp moment earlier. I answered simply, without drama, without needing to perform. I spoke from a place of My cousin Lena shared how she had been struggling with her own sister, always feeling like she was in second place. Others chimed in. It was as if my words had opened a portal for everyone to speak honestly. Years of buried feelings began to surface kindly, gently. My dad finally looked at me with something I hadn't seen in a long time: pride. Not for what I had done, but for who I had become. He raised his glass slightly and said, "You've grown into a remarkable woman." Just like that, no fanfare, but it meant more than any speech I'd ever heard. And even though I didn't cry, I felt something shift in my chest. The part of me that had always wondered if I was enough finally felt like maybe I was my sister. Didn't come back to the table right away, but when she did, her demeanor was quiet, reflective. She didn't boast, didn't interrupt, didn't try to regain the spotlight. She listened. For once, she actually listened. I caught her glancing at me once or twice, not with contempt, but something closer to curiosity, even admiration. I knew it wouldn't change overnight. People like her don't undo years of habits in one evening, but it was a beginning. And beginnings matter. When dessert was served, she softly said, "This is your favorite, right?" As she passed the tray to me, it was subtle, almost imperceptible, but I noticed and I nodded. "Thank you," I said. We didn't have a long talk that night. We didn't hug and cry and become best friends again, but we found something even more powerful: honesty. And with honesty came a fragile first step towards something better, not perfect, but real, and real is more than I had hoped for. As the night ended and everyone began to gather their things, I walked toward the door, ready to leave with a lighter heart. My sister stood nearby, still near Mom. She looked at me and mouthed, "I'm sorry." I nodded again. That was enough. Sometimes you don't need a grand apology. Sometimes the quiet ones carry the most weight. As I stepped outside into the night air, I felt like I was walking out as a different person. Not because the world had changed, but because I had stopped shrinking in it. I had stopped waiting for someone else to validate my life, and in doing so, I had made room for myself, to be seen not by others, but by me. The sky above was clear, stars bright. I took a deep breath, feeling it fill my lungs in a way that felt new, free. I thought about all the years I had spent in her shadow, thinking I had nothing worth showing, and yet, all along, I had been carrying light, quiet, steady light, the kind that doesn't beg to be seen, but glows anyway. I turned back once, looking at the warm light spilling out from the windows of my parents' house, a place full of old patterns, old memories, but now also full of new possibilities. I smiled softly and walked away, not with bitterness, not with anger, but with peace. Because that night I had found the question that didn't just silence the room, it awakened something far deeper. A question that didn't destroy her, but reminded both of us of what really mattered. And sometimes, one question is all it takes not to win an argument, but to reclaim your worth.